Cuba, 90 miles off the coast of Florida, a long-lost paradise. But since the signing of Proclamation 3447 in 1962, it has been a what could have been nation, suffocated by the longest-running economic embargo in modern history. What was frozen in time as a Cold War chess piece has evolved into a modern humanitarian crisis. 60 years of isolation haven't just targeted a government. They have quietly dismantled the daily infrastructure of life for 11 million people. This is the story of how a permanent economic siege, orchestrated by the world's largest financial superpower, turned an island of immense potential into a closed ecosystem of survival. The blockade didn't just stop trade, it walled off a nation's future. For decades, Washington framed the embargo as a simple bilateral dispute. America chooses not to trade with Cuba. But the reality is a global dragnet. Because the United States holds a virtual monopoly on the international monetary system, the embargo isn't just American. It's extraterritorial. How does a domestic U.S. law stop a French company from selling auto parts to Havana? Simple. The U.S. dollar. Over 80% of all global trade is settled in dollars. Nearly all international wire transfers pass through American clearing banks or use the SWIFT messaging network. If an international bank processes a single transaction involving Cuba, even using euros or yen, the U.S. Treasury's OFAC division can hit them with catastrophic, multi-billion-dollar fines or completely revoke their access to the global economy. To survive, global corporations simply freeze Cuba out. If you think the world supports this isolation, look at the scoreboard. Every single year for over 3 decades, the United Nations puts the Cuban embargo to a democratic vote. The results are a staggering, near-unanimous rejection of American policy. Landmark allies like the UK, France, Canada, Spain, and Mexico vote yes to end the blockade. The only 2 nations consistently voting no to keep it? The United States and Israel. The entire globe officially condemns the embargo as a violation of international law. Yet, because of its asymmetric financial power, a single superpower can completely override the collective democratic consensus of the human population. Washington insists there are humanitarian exceptions for food and medicine. On paper, yes. In practice, the compliance red tape is intentionally weaponized. Under U.S. regulations, any foreign medical equipment containing more than 10% American patented microchips or components is legally banned from being sold to Cuba. Cargo ships that dare to dock in a Cuban port are legally barred from entering a U.S. port for 6 months. For global shipping lines, dropping off medicine in Cuba means losing access to the largest consumer market on Earth. The financial risk is so severe that international giants simply refuse to bid on Cuban contracts. The humanitarian exception is a mirage. The wall remains absolute. The Cold War ended over 30 years ago. The Soviet Union is gone. The embargo has completely failed to trigger a regime change in Havana, and it deeply alienates America from its closest allies. So why is it still active? Because the embargo is no longer a foreign policy strategy. It is a highly lucrative domestic business model. In American politics, the road to Capitol Hill and the White House runs directly through the deep pockets of ultra-wealthy anti-Castro political action committees in South Florida. Millions of dollars in campaign contributions and crucial voting blocs flow through these channels every single election cycle to keep the blockade locked down tight. Entire political dynasties, lobbying firms, and career strategists exist solely to protect the embargo status quo. The policy doesn't stay in place because it works for global democracy. It stays in place because it works perfectly for the people funding the campaigns.